Thank you for joining us. Today we are here to talk about the latest report that has just been published by the Competence Steering Group. This is part of the industry steering group that was formed in response to produce a construction industry response to the Dame Judith Hackitt review that was published following the Grenfell Tower tragedy. And so with me today, I have Douglas Masterson. Douglas is a technical manager of the Guild of Architectural Ironmongers. And Douglas, since April this year, April 2020, has been the deputy chair of the Competence Steering Group for construction products, what was previously known as Working Group 12. Also with us is Hanna Clarke. Hanna is policy manager for the Construction Products Association. And Hanna actually also has a very useful overview of all of the various groups because she sits also on the Industry Response Group and the Competence Steering Group. So welcome to you both. Thank you very much for joining me today. If I may then, I want to just go straight to this report, Setting the Bar. This is now published. This is the follow-up, of course, to the Raising the Bar report that was published in August 2019. So we now have Setting the Bar. And that includes, the latest report includes some pretty strong proposals for how we do improve competence in the construction industry. But before we look more closely at some of the detail and the contents of that, could you just explain to everybody really why you believe this report is so significant? Perhaps if I can start with you, Douglas.
Yes, thank you very much, Liz. Well, we feel that it's significant because it sets out the response really for the entire construction industry. And it's the response to, as you have said, the Hackitt review to building a safer future. So last year we had published the Raising the Bar, and after that we had given industry an opportunity to consult on that. So there was a consultation period. So it wasn't just a report that was put out there for no apparent reason. It was there because we wanted to try and find out exactly what the construction industry felt. So in the different working groups, what we've done is taken that feedback, fed that back into the different working parties, and have integrated that in with our own findings from the initial report. So all of that has been brought together. So we've now crystallized all that information and brought it into the one report, which is the Setting the Bar, which, as you say, has now been published.
So how about you, Hanna?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really about industry responding to the Hackitt report. It's very important to us that we are landing each and every one of those recommendations. And having done this huge amount of work on competence and its positioning, it's now important that we really ensure that this gets delivered. So this is about making sure that the messaging is very clear and focused about what this road ahead looks like. Also, I think this represents an enormous commitment from industry. This is an industry-led response, both to the Hackitt report and to the government's position. So it really does represent an enormous amount of effort from industry.
So Hanna, obviously, a lot of work's gone into this, as you said, huge amount of work, and it's obviously been pretty complex. But from your point of view, what do you think, why is it that a competence framework for the construction products industry is so complicated?
So we are trying to deal with the competence of many different actors using products. So we may be talking about a designer using a product, we may be talking about an installer or a maintainer, for example. And while when we're talking about the individual competence of the professions, we're talking about people and what they do. Here, the consistency is the product. And as such, we're dealing with multiple different players and multiple different perspectives for those players. So this is really about us creating something that is applicable and practical, and also elegant, so it's very understandable. So that's why we are taking our time to develop this quite carefully.
Douglas, your latest update, the latest report from your working group within the Setting the Bar report makes it clear that actually your final recommendations we probably won't see until Q4 in this year. I mean, I guess that potentially not even before, I don't know, February or March next year. So I think, can you tell us a little bit more then about what is the work that's going on now, or between now and then? What is it that you still have to do? What can we expect to see when it comes out?
Yeah, we've put a lot of time and effort and determination into creating a number of separate working parties within WG12. And I must say that WG12, we're very, very fortunate. We're very lucky. We've very talented individuals who have given up a lot of their time already on this for the good of industry, and we're certainly very appreciative. But some of the key areas that we're looking at is collaboration, so that we're not just looking at what we're doing in construction products in its own silo, but we're taking a look at how it overlaps in other areas. So there are two key areas that we have chosen that we're looking at the moment. And one is with Working Group 0. Working Group 0 is the overarching competence body. And the other one that we're working with is WG2. And WG2 are the installers. And both these are important to ourselves. From a WG0 perspective, they have a number of tasks that they're involved in. One of them is the extremely important task of the creation of a suite of new national standards in the whole area of competence. And that's competence with regards to building safety manager, principal designer, principal contractor. But it's also looking at the creation of a benchmark competence framework. And that's something that's really important to ourselves from a WG12 perspective, because we have been involved in the creation of our own competence framework for construction products. So when we're taking a look at how we are going to have our framework put together, and we're taking a look at areas such as skills and knowledge and experience and behaviour, it was really, really important to us that we're all effectively singing off the one hymn sheet, that we're all looking at it from the same perspective. So we have been working very closely with WG0 in respect of that we've got our framework and something that is has correct methodologies, that has something which is measurable. So we're working very closely on that. The other area that, or the other group that we're working with specifically is WG2, as I've said, the installers. And of course, it really goes without saying that you can't just supply product. It's all about how it's installed on site. So our own framework that we have, it's really important to us that we know that it will be used in various different other ways and that it can be used by other groups. Installers was a particularly important one for us to ensure that whenever the product is supplied, that it is installed and is installed in a competent manner. Now, there are other working groups that are on our hit list, for want of a better word. We do want to work with supervisors. We want to work with procurers. We want to work with designers. But we're conscious that Rome wasn't built in a day. So we've concentrated on WG0 and WG2 first. And then as we continue our journey, then we'll take a look at how we can continue our work and start to work more closely with these other groups.
Hanna, your report talks about developing a method to identify and mechanize ethical behaviour. Can you speak to this a little bit more and really expand on this? What does that actually mean?
Absolutely. I think anybody who's listened to the Grenfell Fire Inquiry podcast will note some of the behaviours that have been demonstrated there are both concerning, but also sadly fairly typical of some which are demonstrated. If you've been in the construction sector, you will have come across it. And it's very important that we have persons taking responsibility not making assumptions, asking pertinent and sometimes critical questions. And this is all about competent levels of behaviour. I also think it's very necessary to note, though, that often when you're working in construction, you're dealing with very complicated environments, high pace, high stress, and often with very high client requirements, requirements to meet time and cost deliverables that sometimes fairly unrealistic. So we absolutely have to consider in our framework both the organisations and the individuals when we're considering putting together requirements for behaviour. So this is about really having organisations demonstrate their leadership, demonstrate processes that make behaviour a priority. And it's also about assessing the individuals to make sure that they are following up and also putting their behaviour as that priority. So really for our framework, we are developing what those requirements are. So we're doing a level of research into what has already been developed out there, what codes of ethics are available, but also what are the mechanisms that ensure those code of ethics are upheld. So that's the work we've been doing.
You're also looking at exploring the idea of using this competence framework as a way to sort of underpin product guarantees and warranties. Would you mind explaining a bit more about what that means? What's your thinking in this area?
Yes, Liz, I think one of the areas that we are looking at is, as you say, guarantees and warranties, and that is particularly important to us. From a construction product perspective, it's right that we look at all mechanisms that are available to us in respect of competence. Now, this area is something we have devoted a lot of time to. We've set up our own working party within WG12 also to look at this, who are experts within this field. Now, I will add that this is very much a work in progress at the moment. It is WIP. So our thought was that, you know, from a supply chain perspective, we need to provide tested product, which is safe to use, and that's our part of the bargain. But the other side of the bargain is that we also need to have confidence that that product will be installed correctly and specified correctly. So I suppose as part of that trade-off, as part of that two-way relationship, we were conscious of the fact that there are mechanisms that we have at our disposal from a construction manufacturing perspective to ensure that installation is done and is done correctly. So that is something that we are currently working on. As I say, work is ongoing, but I suppose that what I would say is watch this space. It will certainly form a large part of what we're going to be doing, and that will be available in our final report.
Hanna, the work that you've been looking at as a group is not just about establishing the qualities needed for, you know, competent selection and implementation of products and installation, as you've mentioned. You've also talked about the competence around communicating and marketing products as well. And so I'm really interested in, you know, if you could tell us a little bit more about that, and what is the latest. You know, what's the latest on the work of the Marketing Integrity Group that I know has been sort of running in parallel with what you've been doing?
Absolutely. The Marketing Integrity Group is a CPA initiative that has been set up in direct response to Chapter 7 of the Hackitt Review. And that's really about us as an industry saying, yes, we are going to up our game in how we are going to be communicating about products. That is very important to us. So the MIG has been tasked to set up a framework that is going to make product information clear, transparent, complete, accessible, and most importantly, unambiguous. So that is the task that they have been set, and they are now creating a voluntary code. And within that code, we anticipate that manufacturers should be signing up to a set of requirements of how you are going to be communicating your information, whether that be through your publications or through videos, or even to the extent of how a marketing person will be speaking or a salesperson will be speaking. So we would also, on the other side of that, be putting in some work to ensure that the rest of the supply chain demand that manufacturers be using that code and be demanding that level of quality. So when we're talking about competence, of course, in this context, this is really about squaring that circle, because we appreciate that you can't make a competence decision on a product if you don't have the competent information about its performance, that you can really trust that it has come from the correct testing information. And for example, if you're talking about even things like warranties and guarantees, that there is real clarity about what is being sold there. So this is, as I say, this is squaring off the circle. This is saying that we expect people to be competent in using products, and we will in turn be competent about how we're communicating about those products.
What's the timescale for all of this, Hanna?
So the MIG is intending to put out a report by Q4 of this year. And we expect to see implementation coming in 2021.
What advice would you give to someone like me? You know, how do I navigate my way through something like this to really get the value from it?
It's not so much complicated as it is complex. We are dealing with an industry that is made up of many different industries, and as such we've got many different variables that we have to tackle when we're trying to consider bringing this all together and considering a more integrated approach. So if I was going to take this from one particular profession's perspective, I would absolutely spend some time getting to know this overarching system. Spend some time to look at the things which are going to be common right across the board. I would take the time to look into the specific profession that I'm dealing with. And then after that, then I would start thinking about what are the neighbouring professions, because what's really important here is not just the competence of our own professions, but it's also about understanding how do we integrate with all of the different competences that we're working with. That's how we're going to really start achieving some understanding and some change. So that's really the perspective I would take when reading this report.
Obviously, this work, you know, extends well beyond the construction product sector, and actually, you know, incorporates the whole of the construction industry in effect. So I'm just interested in perhaps your final word of, you know, if you could just summarize the most important message that you would like the construction industry to take from this report as it stands today, or what would you say to the industry as a whole? Perhaps start with you, Douglas.
Yeah, I suppose, and sum it up in 3 words, that competence is key. It really is, and it's key across the whole industry, not just in our sector, although obviously of huge importance to us in the construction products industry. But it's key, and it's key across all the different stages. So not just from manufacture of product, specification, supply, installation, inspection, maintenance, end of life. This runs the whole way across all aspects and across all actors within the industry. So we've started this process. It started really with Dame Judith Hackitt, and And really, she pilloried the industry when she said that there was this race to the bottom approach. And those words really stung. It stung, I'm sure, many of us, but it also struck a chord. So really the challenge to us is, yes, it is to raise the bar. It is to set the bar higher than ever before. And it's hopefully to learn the lessons from what we've seen so that the likes of the tragedies that we've seen in Grenfell just don't happen again, because we have raised the bar in relation to our competence across the whole industry. That's my final word on it.
And Hanna, what would you say?
So I would say when it comes to WG12's work, the product competence work, this is very much not just about manufacturers. This is about clients recognizing the value of products. It's about designers understanding the essence of products. It's about installers using them in the right way, and for building users to use them in the right way, for them to be correctly maintained. And also for us, we want our members, the CPA members, to know that we're doing this on behalf of them to ensure that the good work of our sector is properly utilised to create quality buildings. And for everybody who is using our products to take advantage of all the care and the hard work that is involved in placing good quality products onto the market.
That is a really, really helpful quick summary of setting the bar and the work of Working Group 12 and the Construction Products Competence Working Group. So thank you, Douglas, and thank you, Hanna, for your time today to tell us a little bit more. The report Setting the Bar is available from the Construction Products Association website.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can download it today, and I'm sure that will create a lot of discussion for the months to come. And thank you both for your time today.
Thank you so much, Liz.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Liz.
Bye.